Good evening. I would like to welcome you to the Finance Committee meeting for March 1st, 2011. And we will have a roll call, and Alderman Pardue.
Here.
Azier, absent. Ertz.
Here.
Lightfoot.
Here.
And Melson is here. So we have 4 present this evening. And now we'll take time for public comments. Is there anyone wishing to make public comments this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on. We do have the minutes from the January 25th, 2011 meeting. Are there any corrections to those minutes? No corrections?
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. And the roll call, Alderman Ertz.
Yes.
Alderman Lightfoot.
Yes.
Alderman Pardue.
Yes.
Alderman Azier is absent. And Alderman Melson is yes. So those two pass. The only thing that we have on the regular agenda for this evening is the Kansas City ATA Metroflex report. And I will turn it over to Mr. Wilmot.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. This should be a relatively quick meeting tonight. The next meeting we have in March, the end of March 22nd, we'll go over the first quarter results for the current fiscal year. But we wanted to get together tonight to talk about the first quarter of the KCATA, understanding that only the month of January would be under the new contract. The months of November and December are under the old contract. But just staying consistent with the contract that said quarterly we'll get together and look at results. We wanted to do that tonight. So with me tonight is Danny O'Connor from the KCATA, and I'm going to turn it over to him to speak on the report that he's put together, and then we'll take questions after that.
Great. Good evening. Danny O'Connor, Kansas City Area Transportation Authority, the Planning Department. What I've provided to you is basically we have end-of-year ridership totals for Route 253, the Raytown Metroflex, total riders and also the average daily. And then we also have ridership stats for the first month of 2011, which concluding in January. And as you'll recall, there was a service change that took effect come January 1st with the new contract. And that's we're starting to see the impact of what that was on ridership with this route. So, and just to familiarize you with the table, your front sheet basically talks about or summarizes the total ridership by month from the inception of this route, which was April of 2001, all the way through January of 2011. We've seen steady growing ridership all the way through. In 2010, we ended the year with about 91 average daily riders. Specific to this last quarter, November, there were 99 average riders per day, December, 93. During the service levels up until 2010, basically had service on the street from 6 in the morning till 6:30 at night due to different financial issues. There was a service reduction that took effect come January 1st, and now the service is on the street from 6 in the morning till 10, 2:30 to 6:30. And with that, what we have seen is basically a reduction in ridership. It's down to about 67 riders a day. That's what we saw in January compared to last year, which was 84. So there's been a slight reduction in ridership, which we expected with the reduction. The back pages of the handout have basically our day-by-day totals, and I think what's probably the most interesting piece that I'm looking at and would like to direct you to is the last page is the January, and it shows basically how the route did day by day. We had, there's different categories on it. The first one, subscription, you have the date of service, and then your second header is subscription. Those are riders who say they have an appointment every 2 weeks that's at a medical facility, that they have that programmed in our logs. Advance is ADV. That refers to riders who make a reservation 24 hours in advance. And flag down are either riders who are out along the route attempting to board, or they call the day of, and we accommodate them as the schedule allows. So what we saw in January, still quite a few subscription trips per day. We're averaging about 37 on that. Those are people who are going to and from work, to and from medical appointments, et cetera. Advance, not as much. This is the 24 hours in advance when people can call in to schedule. We're seeing approximately 10 trips per day on that. And then flag down, these are the day ofs when people call in. That's a really healthy number, 21 riders per that. So we continue to monitor the service. There were some questions once it began operating under the new schedule, but our dispatch is continuously communicating this to passengers and helping them facilitate the new schedule. So, and I'll leave it. I did pass out new pocket schedules. Those are on our website. They're out. They have the new hours. There was a map adjustment that just to update the Walmarts and the duly noted in the proper location, but these are officially out and about. And I'll leave it at that unless there's other specific questions. So.
Are there any questions? Alderman Ertz?
Do you, does the bus run on like Martin Luther King Day, President's Day, any of those?
Yes, it runs on every week, 255 weekdays a year, and on major holidays such as Christmas or New Year's, we run a Sunday schedule at ATA. So in that instance, since this is a weekday route, it doesn't run. But on holidays like MLK Day, yes, we did run. President's Day, we ran. Veterans Day, we will run. If it's a major holiday, 4th of July, Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, we run a Sunday schedule at ATA, which means that this route does not run. So,
do you feel like people at first are going to need to get used to knowing the hours, and then perhaps we'll start building this back up? I'm sure that's what we're all hoping for. But,
yeah, I think I was pleasantly surprised looking at the ridership when what was remaining on board after a 4-hour break in the midday, that there's still 67 riders. That's pretty good for January, especially when you think about the weather of January and system-wide, we didn't have the healthiest ridership due to the weather. So we'll continue to monitor that. We get these monthly reports as soon as the month concludes. I'm looking for February's, and we'll pass it on to Jeremy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Alderman Azier?
Yeah, I'm curious, is this the bus line that used to stop at the old Walmart? Did you have a bus stop there?
We did, and that was this was one of 3 that used to stop there. So this one is the Raytown Metroflex, which covers the zone, the curb to curb within Raytown, and also points in Kansas City, Blue Ridge Crossing, Bannister Mall. At the old Walmart, we also run 2 routes out of Kansas City. Route 28 Blue Ridge, which runs north and south on Blue Ridge, had a stop there, and also Route 163, 63rd Street, which basically comes over 63rd to Blue Ridge, down to 67th, and makes a loop to turn back in. So.
Do the buses, do any of the buses still stop there, or has it since been dropped after Walmart moved from that site?
I believe we still have stops because there are other, not specifically for Walmart, but other activities at the corner that people will stop and deboard with the fixed route pieces. So.
And I guess the other question wasn't, and the reason I ask it, because I've had people inquire and I couldn't answer the question.
Okay.
When the new Sutherland's going, do you anticipating putting more stops back in there?
When the new, I'm sorry, I missed.
When the new Sutherland's moves into the old Walmart, do you anticipate
Certainly.
refurbishing the previous stops that you at one time made?
Certainly. This route, the 253 Metroflex, will make a stop at that new location that's within the service boundary. We'll want to make sure that we locate that stop in the appropriate location. The routes on Blue Ridge and 63rd Street and around 67th, we're going to continue to use those stops because they're very well used with the fixed routes coming out of Kansas City. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So you do think that, I mean, since the numbers are down, you know, a little bit, or a lot, with the ridership, that it's really just kind of getting used to the new hours, and I mean, weather definitely played a part in that in January, obviously, but or do you, I mean, just the decrease in the hours is kind of what's faltering that?
I think with the ridership, I think two factors. The first one, and we're going to see how this trends out for the year, is that the hours were decreased, so therefore that decreases the capacity of how many trips we can provide. We're looking at now a block of 4.5 hours that we're no longer in service, and typically we'd have 3 to 4 to 5 trips in those hours.
Right.
So that capacity's gone. Mm-hmm. What we're seeing, the work trips in the early morning, the work trips and coming home at night, those are still well used. People are having to adjust their medical appointments or their other discretionary trips around this, and that has been something that's been called in with that.
Go ahead.
Oh, and then weather, January is typically on our system is a lower ridership month, so we'll want to see where this goes when the weather is better. We have had passengers who call in who are trying to schedule trips when in this period where service no longer exists, and we have to tell them, we're sorry we can't accommodate you then, but these are the hours we have to work with. So.
Well, I think February will probably show those low numbers too, with blizzards and lovely weather conditions that we've had. On these brochures, have they been just widely distributed within Raytown then?
Yeah, and they're on the bus that's circulating through the community every day. So they're out. They're at City Hall, our typical locations that we have drop-offs for those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're on our website. People, anyone can download them, print them off as Adobe PDFs with the schedule, with the map.
Okay. Alderman Ertz?
Just to get back from a citizen's comment.
Sure.
To schedule a ride, is it still possible that you call the day before and you'd have a very good chance? Or I was hearing that somebody was telling them it could be days ahead that you would have to call. To just briefly explain how you get a ride on the bus.
Sure. We have basically 3 ways to reserve a trip, and they're detailed not only in the pocket schedule but also in your ridership packet. They're a packet that I've provided for you. But subscription trips, those are trips that say someone's making a work trip every morning at 7:45, and so they're programmed in the system. More than a third of the riders currently use that system. And then advance, which is 24 hours or more in advance, that's when we typically request riders to call in so that we can program in their trip, make it work as much as we can with the capacity, where the bus is going. We might have to adjust their trip by 15 minutes or within a window, but that's worked out with Metroflex dispatch. And then we also, allow same-day trips, just depending on availability, where the vehicles are, if they have capacity on, where people can call in. So we're still seeing that 24-hour window holding when people can call and be able to get a trip the next day. With the decreased capacity, yes, there is some, passengers now they might have to adjust their trip a little bit more than what they did before, as far as they might not be able to make it exactly at the time they request. It might have to be a little earlier, et cetera. So.
If somebody was to schedule a doctor's appointment now around your bus schedule, is there a particularly good time that would be, that they would have a more than likely be able to schedule the bus?
Typically what we see in the early morning hours, so 6, service starts at 6 and it's out until 10. Your first couple hours, 6 to 8, we see quite a few work trips, and medical, typically medical facilities aren't open for regular office visits at those hours. So we would recommend, after the 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock hour up until 10, and then early afternoon, the route resumes service again at 2:30. Up until the 2:30 to, the trips pick up again about 4 in the afternoon for PM rush hour trips, so that 2:30 to 4 window.
Do you have any data on how many people you could not serve from calls or?
No, we don't. I mean, we're estimating from.
Granted, it's new and everybody's going to have to learn the hours.
Yeah.
Make some schedule changes. But.
Yeah. We're estimating based on well, we know what ridership is per hour and kind of looking at those rates and what it was before. So we can see where the drop off is due to the capacity piece. Our dispatch folks, they do the best job that they can with the customer. It is a personal call that where they're working with them to try to best accommodate their trip.
Well, I work along Blue Ridge Cutoff Boulevard over there, and your bus is very well used along that corridor. And, I believe Our Lady of Lourdes is a park and ride just about every day. I see lots of people waiting for the buses there. So I think we get a lot of service from there. And again, down on the corner of 67th, and for that matter, even down across from the apartment houses at about 71st, there's a pretty good bus stop there. Yeah. I believe we're also served by commuters, probably through I-70 coming from Blue Springs, and a park and ride up near where the new Walmart or Blue Ridge Mall used to be. And we still have the park and ride in Raytown. Is it, I don't know what we call that place anymore, but I'm sure it's still called, okay.
The former Adams Toyota.
The former Adams Toyota, right. Let's go with that. Yeah.
And that route that's coming out, that's Route 152, Lee Summit, right. Raytown Express. So it has 4 trips in the morning.
It seems to have a lot of people on it. So, looks like we do have some people taking advantage of it. I hope things go well. So.
Yeah, there's lots of options besides, this is a good neighborhood community circulator, but a lot of what we see with the riders they're trying to transfer to some of those other fixed routes that you mentioned to get up, whether it's a trip into downtown Kansas City, up to Blue Ridge Crossing, to where we have other routes connect, down to Bannister.
Is it quicker to take that commuter downtown or to go over on Blue Ridge and take
I'd have to look. I think they're about they're similar because what we have on Blue Ridge Cutoff they're 28X trips, and they're express trips that come out of almost Grandview. They make limited stops. There's park and rides along Blue Ridge, and then once they get up to Blue Ridge Crossing at I-70, they come straight in.
They just head in.
Right.
Okay.
The one that's coming out of Lee Summit uses 350, and then it gets on 435 to 70 in. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you very much for at least bringing us an update.
Oh, you're welcome.
And we'll just kind of look for those next numbers, and hopefully spring is on its way and everyone will be out riding the bus. We can only hope.
We appreciate another year of partnering with Raytown, and feel free to, if you have any questions, direct them to myself or through Jeremy, and we'll be happy to look into whatever you have. So, great, thank you.
So, any other business to come before the committee?
That's all tonight. Again, just a reminder, we'll go over the first quarterly results at the March 22nd meeting.
Okay, so the next meeting will be March 22nd. 6 p.m., which is a Tuesday.
I'm sorry, I did just an update on the audit.
Okay.
The field work ended on Friday. I'd say probably 4 or 5 weeks earlier than we did last year, so I think we made some good strides there. Not nearly as many findings, which I think are good. We still have areas that my staff and I are working on to make the audit a little smoother next year. But the audit report should be ready probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then we'll look. If we're not ready by the March 22nd meeting, then we'll have the presentation in April.
Okay.
And then the full report to the board, I think, is going to be April 15th right now.
Okay, excellent. All right. Anything else to come before the Finance Committee? Do I hear a motion to adjourn? So moved. Second. And a second. Alderman Pardue?
Yes.
Alderman Azier?
Yes.
Alderman Lightfoot?
Yes.
Alderman Ertz?
Yes.
And Alderman Milson is yes. And thank you very much.